What's going on, everybody? Hit Pause here. I wanted to actually bring you guys a demo of what I've just finished making and actually show you how it's done. Now, I'm doing this differently because honestly, I mean, it took me basically all day yesterday because I wasn't sure about some stuff and I've had to do a bunch of research. I didn't want to make, an 8 hour long tutorial or anything like that. So I figured, well, in this case, I was just going to finish it and then do my best to explain how it works in somewhat general terms, but I will show you guys the code. So I'm going to call this one actually a advanced tutorial, given that you're going to pretty much have to know Flash in order to do this. So I apologize for that I'm not doing this step by step or anything like that, but I think that you will get some use out of it. Now what this is actually a server browser, which is going to be fed values from UT. The UT code is going to handle basically going out and populating the server, which is basically just a simple array. So let me demo it real quick in terms of its functionality. So come here and I hit Control Enter here just to get it to run, and let me scale it into view so that you guys can see it. Okay, and I got some debug buttons. The only button that's actually going to be visible during the game is going to be the refresh button. Everything else is going to be controlled externally, but I do have add and clear here just so that I can test this thing. Now, so what you'll see is I got a main title. I need to fix this so that you can't select it. I got a refresh button and clear button. They're not going to do anything right now. I've got sort buttons. Okay. I've also got a cursor that spins when you get to it. Any button will cause the cursor to spin, and when you're not spinning, it will stop. So when you hit add, basically I have a mock list of servers that would pop up here. Okay. So what it does is it's going to pop up a bunch of servers, and I just added them. Just 8 of them, just tests. These are all just basically fake values. These are hard values, I've just faked them and made up a bunch of silly names. So when you highlight them, you can see that they do in fact highlight, and then when you click it, it will actually pop up and say, do you want to join the server? You can cancel it. You can't click anything else. You can click back, so you can still cancel and go back to the main menu, but and it will pop up the same values here, so you can see 192.168.1.1 that matches. Team deathmatch is correct. Map is boys room. Players is correct, and the ping shows up and the name shows up. Now if I click another one, say like Clammy Sosa's Palms here, you can see that it is popping up the correct stuff here. And then I close it, and I can add more. Now it's just the same thing again. It's just another 8. Okay. Now it only shows 15, but that's because I am using a value here of 0 through. And if I add more, I'll just click this a whole bunch of times. You can see that the drag button actually will drag down through, up and down, and it will stop at the correct point, and it will stop at the top correct point here, like so. Okay, and I can clear it, and this I was gonna make it so you couldn't drag it if it wasn't off the screen yet. It won't actually do anything, but every time I hit add, it will pop that back up. Every time I hit like if I pull this down and I hit refresh, and again, this is going to be the only button that the players are actually going to get, so they're just going to be able to keep refreshing. It will pop that back up to the top just in case. And if I add a bunch and I say like scroll all the way back down, you hit refresh, it will bring them back to the top of the list. Now the sort fields do work. Okay, you can see that B, C, it does end up being in proper alphabetical order here. Okay, IP address is a little wonky because it's kind of just taking, I didn't split out the dot or anything like that. I just decided to let it go. I was actually debating whether or not I was going to let you sort by IP, since it's kind of a secondary thing, but it's always a good idea, I think, to show the IP address of the server so that players can go to console and just type open IP in case that there's issues with the way that this is working or anything like that. They can at least come in and say, you know, tell their friends or whatever, oh, it's this IP, you know. This is actually co-op, but this guy's British, so I put oi in there just for fun. He was gonna make me a farm bridge, and the only thing I ever really got him to make was a a piggy bank. So everything that he makes now is just basically a piggy bank. So it's a pink curly-tailed bridge. He never ended up making the bridge for me. So in game mode again, that will be, you know, that goes in alphabetical order. The map goes in alphabetical order. Players will sort from the highest down. I could have made it so that there was an up and a down arrow so you can flip it. So like maybe yellow would be top to bottom, and maybe I change it to, I don't know, like blue or something. Would reverse the order every time you click it. So you click, but I can also take it off there, and so it doesn't sort anymore. And again, you can sort by ping, so it will go and basically show the list by ping. Again, I can clear it, and then if I take it off of any kind of sorting, it's just in the order that I created the list, and then again refresh. But as soon as you click this, it automatically does it. Okay, it basically, when you click this, it clears the list and then redoes the list every time you do that. So that's how I went about doing that. And again, I mean, it will, like, I mean, I'm gonna spam this like absolutely crazy to make like 400 or 500 servers. It adds 8 at a time, so I gotta hit it quite a few times here. You can hear me going nuts on that button there. I think nope. And you can see that it will support as many as anybody adds. So if there was a 2,000 or something, which I don't expect or anything like that, but even if there was, it would be, you know, it will fit. So the Flash is ready for anything. This pretty much has a limit of 30 characters here using the font and size that I'm using. This here is actually going to be we're going to feed this the map, the mode and the map and stuff like that. So the number of fields here, I just made sure master bedroom is our longest map name, so that's going to be, you know, basically kind of hard coded. Nobody's going to be able to enter that, but people will be able to enter in their own name, and if they put a name in there that's way too long, it's just going to cut off. There's nothing, you know, it'll just cut off on there, and it will actually, I may make it so that if it cuts off here, maybe it can still show here or something like that. But honestly, I just think that it's a better idea for us to have a limit, you know, on how big you want to make your name. And join server is actually doing something, but it's not going to do that here in Flash in game. It would fire a call to Unreal function. So there's a demo of how it works. And again, back is not going to do anything right now because that's firing an Unreal function to close the window. So that is everything that it's doing. Okay, and again, you can close this, and again, you notice that the screen slightly darkens when that happens, but and basically it's just to kind of show that you can't click anything outside of here except the back button, which is actually in front of stuff. So boom, there we go. All right, so let's see, how is it done. First, let's take a look at this add button here. The very first thing that I do is actually populate an array. Now on the main timeline is where the meat of everything is. Okay, so I've got actions here, and I just got an action script here, and basically this is what I'm receiving from UT. Okay, so I'm passing a list from UT. Now what I do is when I open it up, it's an empty array. I also have a dump array because when I go to clear or do add and whatnot, I need to make sure I have a list of all the movie clips that get generated so that I can delete them later. This actually ended up not being used. I wasn't sure how to do the sorting. That was the thing. Like, I got stuck at that part kind of like for a little while. I wasn't sure how to get the sorting correct. I did actually figure it out, that you can do this here, sort on by the field. So let me show you the array real quick so you can understand how the fields are working. When I hit this button, basically it pushes, and again there's 8 of them, okay, and I could just add 50 or 100 or just even one, you know, like if I take all of these here and I say, I'll just comment these out, and when I go to hit play now, every time I hit this button, which is off the screen here, I'll just show you real quick, it just adds the 1. And now basically sorting isn't going to do anything because it's just the same server over and over again. But that will add just the 1 server. So, and basically, I'll get that back. So what it does is it adds by here, you'll see that it pushes. Now a push command is just going to add to the array. Okay, and it adds it to the end of the array. So if you had like an array that was like the values of 1, 2, 3, and then you said push 4, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 would be the 4th entry, which would actually be index 3, because you got to remember that the first entry in an array is index of 0. So you have to do this here. So this is important. You have to do a parenthesis and a curly bracket. Okay, and then each field now is actually a is actually, instead of just an entry, it's a field, and you do that by, you can name the field. Okay, so you can see that after each comma, now you denote an entry in each indexed entry in an array with a comma. Okay, so if I wanted to make an array that was just like a simple 1, 2, 3 array, I would say, okay, you would just do like test array, and then you'd have to call it an array by using the colon here, and then I could say, and you use brackets. Okay, notice that there's no brackets here, but that's because this is the kind of array that actually has field names, and it would just be 1, 2, 3 like that with commas, and then end that. Now if I trace that, I'm just going to get 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's all I would do. So that's a normal array there. And if you're going to do A, this won't actually work. You have to make it a string, so you just put it in quotes there. So that's a general array. So each one of them has the exact same fields in the exact same order. You can see mode here, map, and then players, and then max players, and then the ping. Okay, so after each comma, this is the name of the field, and it should match on every single one. And when you do it this way, you can I can actually say like trace like server array, and then say like index 0, and then I can say .ip. Okay, and when I do that, if I hit that add button, you can see that it popped up the index of 0, which was the very first one here. 192.168.1.1 is right there. Now if I say instead to trace the dot, like say server, and I hit this button, you can say it's pauses Palace of Awesome. Okay, which is index 0, which is the first the first entry in the array, basically, because I told it to do index 0. So if I do index like 3 server, you can see that when I click the button, Sapper's Sack of Free Joy here, which is actually index 3. Remember, 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that's some basics there on how the arrays are being handled. Okay, and again, it's one master array that I'm generating. Every time I hit the button, it adds this stuff to the array, and then this right here just tells my cursor MC to play. So let me show you the cursor real quick. If you look at the code for the cursor, it's pretty simple. On load, I'm going to tell the cursor to stop, okay, and then on enter frame, I'm going to tell it to follow my mouse. Okay, so this is per tick. Enter frame just is like a delta tick. So this is just going to go every single frame. It's going to say this dot underscore x, which is its x position in pixels, equals the root dot underscore x mouse. Okay, and if I double click it, you can see that it's just a series. Zoom in on this guy. It's just a series of frames. Okay, that I rendered in 3D Studio Max. I also added a, if I look real close, I added a little black dot here just to make sure that you can see where the registration point is, so that when I hit stuff, you can see that I got like that little black dot right on my cursor is just to help the players know exactly where they're going to be clicking. Okay, because the cheese is not coming to a clean arrowed point, right? Because it's got that vertical thickness to it, so I kind of had to do that. But I like the cursor anyway. I've been using it on everything in the game. So, all right. So there's how I'm adding the array. All right. Now let's look at the movie clips here. Now, if I go to the library, I've actually had to put these in 3 basic windows. So entry window MC, you'll notice looks pretty blank here. It's kind of Flash sucks that I can't move this stuff around, but it doesn't really make that big of a difference. Basically, I have this pink box here, okay, that is just a mask for the for the list of server name movie clips here. So what it is if I add and add and add, you can see that it's actually cutting off right here at the bottom. Now this cutoff zone here is the shape of that mask. Now I could have made it so that it cut off like exactly like between right here, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to actually denote to the player that there is more on the list. I could maybe show that there was a plus here or something like that if there's more, and maybe do a minus here. The one thing I don't have that I may do is there's no, if I wheel my mouse, I don't have any control over it, which I'm gonna add. But the thing is I got to do a little bit of math to figure out if I wanted it to go exactly one pace, one spot every time. I gotta kind of do a little bit of math on the whole thing, because this movement here, you'll notice that, you know, from top to bottom I only go to, you know, a very short distance, to be honest with you. Okay, I only move about 7 of them. But if I add a new one, and now when I move, I have to move 16 of them, right? Because I've got a bigger distance here. So the theory, the basic theory is, and it's actually technically kind of simple, but it kind of can get a little confusing. What I'm doing is I'm tracking, when I drag this, I'm tracking the percent distance that this has gone from top to bottom. Okay, this is a set distance right here, which I think is like 600, basically 600 units from top to bottom. So right here the percent is 0. Right here the percent is 100, and right here the percent is about 50, you know, 47 or something like that, 50%. And then what I do in turn is I move this, the amount of percent, in the opposite direction. Okay, now let me show you how that's done real quick. Not really all that quick though, I'll be honest with you guys. It's a little involved. Okay, so inside here, basically I have a movie clip that is, if I look here, it's a scroll bar MC instance of scroll bar MC. Okay, now this contains the bar itself, and it contains the handle. So if I go inside here, you can see that I got the handle. Now the handle is actually a movie clip, and it's got nothing on it. Okay, but inside that movie clip I have a duplicate of it that is now a button, the drag button, and here is where I have the actual code on it. Now I've got some stuff here that I was doing to test. It's always a good idea to trace stuff that you're doing. So basically I say on press, I set a variable, is this thing dragging? And that you'll notice that it's calling to the root timeline, and that's because the variable exists in that keyframe on the root timeline. So if I go back here and say here, and I go all the way to the top, you can see that I declare this variable in the very beginning. This is where you want to declare all your variables, is on that main timeline there, and then you can access these from anywhere in your code, anywhere. Doesn't matter how deep into a movie clip chain they are or anything like that, you can always access that. Okay, so going back in here, I say, when I press this, I say start dragging. Now the fields are basically, okay, target, which is this. Do I want to lock the center? No. Left, top, right, and bottom. So left and right, which is, this is left and this is right, are 0, 0. So those are the X. Okay, so from X, left and right. Now if I put like say 50 and like -50 or something like that, when I do this, you'll see that I'm actually gonna be it didn't like that at all. Oh, that's because I added this little thing to show you guys that field. Now if I click this, you can see that when I click this, I can actually drag it 50 units like to the left and to the right like that. Okay, so I have done the math there in the code to make sure that it's you know, the X is locked, and the basically the again, let me show you this real quick. So if you want to get that back, you just hit the parentheses again. So left 0, top is 0 because it starts off at 0, so it's already at 0 up there. The right is 0 because I don't want it going anywhere left and right, and then the bottom is basically the parent dot height minus this dot height. Now the reason for that is because this whole entire thing is the parent, okay, the whole movie clip, so I can get its height. And but the button itself, you'll notice that it's registered at the top. So when it's at the bottom, if I didn't do the height part of it, minus this guy's height, this movie clip will travel from this point at the top of the whole thing all the way to this point at the bottom of the whole thing, and I would let my handlebar break out of it. So in the distance field, I just subtract its height from the whole thing to make sure that it stops bottom to bottom. So simple math there. Hopefully that makes perfect sense. Okay. Now on release, I reset my variable. On dragging is false, and I say this stop dragging. Okay. Same thing on release outside. If you don't do this release outside, if they click and drag down but they move their mouse to the right and let go, it's not going to release, and then they're going to be stuck with it in their hand basically. And then on rollover and rollout, all I ever do with that is use cursor MC play. Okay, MC stop and MC play, and that's it. Okay, so that's how I am getting this thing to drag. Okay, and again, that's it. So inside of that is nothing further. Inside of that is just the graphic. So just to be clear on that. Okay, so then I've got here, that's the confirm MC. So I gotta go to, because I don't have any movie clips in my main window, it's invisible here and makes it a little bit difficult. But if I go to entry window, inside of entry window here, I'll lock the thing, is entry container MC. Now if you look, this is the meat of the code here. Okay, so on enter frame, which is per tick, I check, am I dragging is true. My root dragging is true. It becomes true when I click and hold down that bar button, that drag bar button. As soon as I let it go, it's false. This stops firing. This only fires when I'm dragging. Okay, so then all I do is I say, okay, well, how much percent is this traveling? Okay, so all I do is I say, okay, the root scroll bar MC dot drag button Y. So it's Y position. Now this is the address of that button, that gray circle that I'm dragging. Okay, and I simply divide it by the total height of the movie, which was 604. Okay, I hard coded this because I was having issues getting the actual piece of the address to the main movie clip from over here. It was just confusing me. It's easy, you can get it, but I was like, okay, well, I know it's 604, so I just divide it by this value. So whatever its Y position is, which like right down the middle, it's going to be like, you know, at 300 or something, I divide that by its total height, which would end up being about 0.5. Okay, and now this is technically not a percent because I would have to multiply by 100, but then I'd be at 50. So I just, you know, you take out, when you're doing it like this, you don't do the times 100. You want to be in the decimal range. Okay, you want to be between 0 and 1. So then I say, okay, well, if this object's height is greater than 627.95. Now, the reason for that is because I end up with the height of this thing is going to forever increase as I add new movie clips. Okay, in the beginning, its height is basically 0. But as soon as I add like 8 movie clips, its height becomes like, 180 or something like that. And then I add another 8, it becomes, 360, and then it keeps going and going and going and going and going. So I only want to worry about this if I've breached that barrier of I've got so many servers now that they're going off the screen. So this is basically saying if that list goes off the screen. Okay. Now this height here, again, I just picked the movie clip and it showed the X and Y over here. It just showed me the height right here. So I just plug that in. Okay. Then I say this.y, okay, which is this is vertical position equals this height minus this amount. Now the reason that you do that is because, let me show you here real quick. It's kind of confusing and it threw me off a little bit, but I remembered it after a while. I've done this a bunch of times, custom scroll bar, but I always kind of forget. So let me show you exactly what's going on here in like a diagram. Okay, so here I am in Photoshop. All right, so I got like a button and I got a bar, like a bar, right? And what I've got here is basically a window. Now, forgive the crude drawing here. Okay, this is the it's actually like this. Okay, so this is the frame of the whole thing. Now this is where I've got the 600. This is 627. Let me make a smaller brush here. Point whatever. Okay, so that's the height here. All right, now my movie clip ends up being like this, okay, like about that big. So the amount of travel that I need here is actually this distance here, okay. That's the amount of travel that I need to go. This is the area that I need to move. So it's the total height of this thing, okay, minus this height here, okay, minus the 627. All right, so this is the total amount of distance I need to travel. I can tell how far this has gone down from here to here because I can do a percent right here, okay? I can check the percent at any moment. All right, so then all I can do is come down here and right here I just use the percent to say how far this has gone up. So let me show you that here. Okay, so this is height minus 27 times the percent travel bar, okay, times the percent, which would be, if it's in the middle, it's going to be at 0.5. And I make sure that this is -1 because you've got to remember in Flash, the top of the movie frame is 0, the bottom is positive. It's not 0 down here and going up is positive. All right, so that's why you got to multiply by -1. So that's the general theory of a draggable movie clip. All right, and so that's really it for the bar. There's nothing else inside of entry container MC. And the reason that I have to put it inside of a movie clip inside of a movie clip is to ensure that I'm not moving the whole stage. Okay, I'm just moving the container here. And again, inside of here, inside of entry container MC, there's actually nothing in here. Okay, there's nothing in here yet. I add that dynamically later. So how do we add it? So when I go to add here, I first populate a server array. Each individual index is a list of values. Okay, so this is like like a little bit more of a dynamic array. And then I fire a root function. Okay, root add server, and I send that array. I send that function the array. So add server here. Okay, so let's go and look at that real quick. That is here. Now, all the way through this to here is in essence, fluff. This is not somewhat non-consequential to the meat of what's actually happening. The meat of what's actually happening is right here. This is the main thing, and actually including the for loop. Okay, so this is all the sorting stuff. This is whether or not I'm going to sort the server list before I do this. Okay, this stuff right here is visual. This is minor stuff. Same thing here. This actually ends up not ever being used. I can actually comment that out and everything will work. So what I do is create a new movie clip, okay, called new server, and I declare it as a movie clip. All right, and then it equals root entry window MC, entry container MC, attach the movie. Now the reason that it's in here is because I want to attach it inside of entry container here. This is the movie clip that gets moved up and down. This is the one that checks its height. Okay, and again, its height being at 0 basically when there's nothing in there, and every time, you know, 8 or add, for every one that's added, it's going to add about 50 or 60 pixels or so. Okay, I add that movie clip. Now the fields for this are the name of the movie clip that you want to add dynamically to the stage that exists over here in the library. Entry MC is the name right here. That name right there is what I need to add right here. Okay, then the next field is actually the unique identifier for this added movie clip. So this new movie clip, so the movie clip, it's a little hard to explain the way Slash works. Each object has a name, okay, which is like its linkage, and then it has a handle. The handle being over here. So like for instance, if I take a look at this, you can see that this is the instance name, but it's an instance of add button. If you look at this one, this is an instance of clear button. It can be clear button. But what I can do is I can take this and make a copy of this, and I can call this clear button 2. Okay, this is an instance of clear button. This is an instance of clear button. They both are. Okay, but this one's called clear button 2. So anytime I want to control this in code, change its visibility, move it around, delete it, make it bigger, smaller, glow, whatever I want to do to it, I use this. Okay, and that's in every case you use this. Every single case except this case here when you're dynamically adding it, because remember, this movie clip doesn't exist on the stage anywhere. It doesn't exist. I'm creating it right now. Okay, attach movie is what I'm doing to create that. So you got to find it in the library. So this is the library name. This is the name that's going to end up being up here in that properties field if I want to access it later. This is just like an ID numbered tag, and then you give it its X and Y. Okay, where do you want it to be on the stage? You can insert values straight in here, 50 and 50, and it will be up, you know, in the corner, in the left-hand corner or whatnot. But in this case, I'm using new X, which actually happens to be always 0. Okay, and I never change that. So I could have just put 0 in there, but I wasn't sure if ever I was going to move them left and right or anything like that. So I just kept it at 0. Now new Y starts at 0. Now you got to understand that when I hit this button, add here, this is 0, not up here in the corner. Okay, because this is the 0 point of the entry container MC. So the reason that it shows up in the correct spot and not way up here in the corner is because I am adding it. I've got some stuff. I just don't need to, you know, as long as I don't save them, okay. I know I put in a couple of like little test things that are going to flag as errors, but so remember, I'm putting it inside of this movie clip here. Okay, so the X and Y are in the top left corner of that movie clip. Okay, the 0, 0 are in that movie clip. So the very next thing I do after I add the dynamic movie clip is I add it to a dump array. Now the reason that I'm populating a dump array is because I need a list of all of these that I can delete later. Okay, so that's why I do it. So when I hit clear, even when I hit add, I delete them all first. And you can see that before I do anything, I wipe that dump array. Okay, so I say, okay, this is a general for loop for n equals 0, so n starts at 0. As long as it's less than the length of that dump array, every time I add a new movie clip, that length goes up by 8. In this case, 8, because I'm adding 8 entries. And then each time I run through this, I increment n by plus plus. Whatever is in that dump array, I remove that movie clip. When I'm done with the for loop, I reset the dump array to be blank. Okay, and that's how you can do that. Just equals just 2 brackets like that. Okay, so I populate the dump array. And the very first one that comes through here, now here's the thing, server list.length, it's the same exact type of for loop. I starts out at 0, and as long as it's less than the length, okay, now remember, if I click add once, the length is actually 8, okay? And each time I run through the for loop, I increment I by plus plus, okay? So I add a new movie clip for the first one, okay, for the first one. And that one becomes entry plus 0, okay? So it's going to be entry 0. Then I say new y equals new server.y plus new server.height plus an additional 5 pixels. The additional 5 pixels, if I hit add here, is that space in between each server entry. Okay? If I change this to say 50, you can see I get a lot of space in between here. Okay? But I decided that I wanted it to be, I could have said plus like a variable called spacing and then allow the spacing to be adjusted or whatever like that, you know, in code, but I like 5 pixels, it looks good. Okay? Now that's it. That's it. That's all that happens, except the one main thing is this number every time gets incremented up. Entry num plus plus means entry becomes the next value. Okay, it adds an integer to it. So this unique identifier starts at 0. So the very first one in the list, the very first time I have an item in the list, okay, I basically say, you know, add it, and it's going to be entry 0. Then it's going to go and it's going to say, okay, well, entry num got turned into a 1 now, so the next one in the list is going to be entry plus 1, so it'll be entry 1, okay? And every single time, new y is going to be basically taking this new server. See, here's the thing. At the moment that you add a new movie clip, you can use this variable to do stuff to it. That's at the moment that you add it in the same thing. As soon as this for loop comes through and happens again, this is now referencing the next movie clip that just got added. The first one is completely lost out of memory, completely out. Okay, it's no longer has any reference to it whatsoever except by this name here. Okay, that is the only way to reference it. So that's why I throw them in an array. I push the value, and it's going to add an object entry. So it'll basically each index of this array is going to be the address of each movie clip. So I can say dump array index 4, delete that one, and it'll get rid of the 4th one that I added. Okay, something like that. So, and that's pretty much the meat of adding the movie clips right there. That's all you really need to do. So then what I do is I set a bunch of variables. Now you'll see that if I go to my library, my entry MC here is basically, let me zoom out some, is just a list. Okay, I have a button that's in front of everything. The button itself has the on and off of going yellow, and that's it. That's all there is to the button. However, when I click that button, there is code that is happening here. Now I'll show you that in a sec. Now remember, on the rollover, it's completely inconsequential. This is just to do that cursor animation. Okay, and what I do is I tell that confirm MC, which is the confirm window that pops up, to just play. Okay, but I tell that the confirm MC, I also tell the confirm MC to set its variables, because you can have variables inside of movie clips and you can set them inside of movie clips, and they are unique instances of those variables. So if I have 25 movie clips and every single movie clip, every single one of them has S name as a variable, then I can access each of those and set each of those individually, because each of them has their own reference to that variable itself. So it's a very nice way to contain your data, you know. So what you'll see is inside of this movie clip, on the very first line here, I've given it a bunch of variables. Now you'll notice that I don't actually give them a value. It's very, very, very important, because every time you do, if you say, okay, I want to add this movie clip and I want to set the variable S game to be, capture the flag or something, it'll say, okay, well, I just set that variable. Now let me open the movie. Oh, and if I say, okay, well, if I give this a default value, it's going to say, okay, well, I just set it to capture the flag, and now I'm opening the movie, and the movie itself is telling it to be set. If I say here equals derp derp derp, okay, whatever that is, this will get written after. So that's why when you do this, for the most part, when you declare variables inside of a movie clip, just declare them and their type. Don't give them a value unless you want that value to overwrite. It's almost in somewhat sense a hard code. You'd have to come back and reset it after this movie clip's already opened. Now, this is most important on a dynamically added movie clip. When you're doing a regular movie clip that is just placed on the stage, these are only going to get ran at load time. Okay, and then you can change them all you want later. But in this case, I don't declare an actual value. Now, the entries are here, and each one is basically just a field. IP address field, game mode field, map field. So that's really all I've got. I've got fields that are named, they're dynamic, the font is embedded. Now anytime you add a dynamic field, you can embed the font just by clicking that button right there. Okay, and then it actually adds the font to the library. When it does come up, you just want to check all for the most part. And I've added two fonts, Stencil, which is our game's main font, and then Verdana, which is is going to be a lot more easy to read. It's more of a standard text, but if you look here, you can see that this is Stencil, so it's got the little, it's an army font. This is an army game, hence the camo and stuff around it. This is Rats the army game. So that's all I got. I got variables in each one, okay, which is basically a variable for each individual field. Now these two get combined into one string, okay, into one field. So in essence, I've only got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fields, okay. And if I zoom out here, you can see I got one. Well, this one doesn't count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fields, okay. This is just the number of the server. This is just the number in the list. That's all that is, okay. So I've got server field name, and you can see if I click this is server num field, IP address field, game mode field, map field, players field, and then ping field. That's it. That's all there is. So what happens is each time one of these is open, I go and I say, okay, well, I want to set all these variables. Okay, these are the variables. Okay, then I set the text. Okay, now that server num field just gets the same name as entry num. Now I probably should have done +1 here, and if I do that, when I add, I start with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 instead of 0. So I'm actually going to go ahead and keep that change, but again, I've got to fix this before I save this file. So that's better. And so yeah, again, I write the variables. Now the variables are coming from the server list. Remember, I'm iterating through that server list. Server list here, this name right here, is getting passed right here in the variable. It comes in as an array. Remember here, I add that here, and what I pass to it is this server array. So each one of these, entry 0 is this big list here, okay? That's what that is. So keeping that in mind, again, you gotta kind of track all this stuff. Keep track of it anyway. You can see that I set server list I. The first time through this, I is 0. So server list I is index 0 of the server array, because that's what got passed into this variable named server list. So I say the new server.sname, okay, that's the variable that exists inside that movie clip. And remember, here's the address to it, new server, because I called it new server, okay? So new server dot, and its variable equals my index, my array, the current index, which is 0, and then the field name of that, okay? So these are all the different field names here, players, max players, ping, okay? Then I set my text fields themselves. The reason this is important that I set the variables is because when I click on the movie clip, those have got to be passed to this, okay? Those get passed to this. So every time I click one of these, it shows all of those variables. I could have just say, okay, well, that text equals this text, but it's much safer to go ahead and lock down values into variables than it is just to use text fields as, you know, the values inside the text fields as your variables. It's just going to be a better approach and easier to track, okay? And you can see, again, that when I come in here and I show this button, okay, I'll unlock the button. If I click the button, when I click the button, I go ahead and I set the confirm MC variables to be this guy's variables, this.s.sip, okay? SIP. I declared it. Where I set it is when I add it, which is here, SIP, okay? So that gets set, that gets written. So that way I now can pass it, all right? This is fluff. This is just visual. This is just to see it on, you know, show up on the list properly. And I mean, while it's important, it's not like code critical. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't. Nothing is relying on this. Okay, it's just write values from past lists to fields. That's it. Okay. Now you can see that the only main difference is that I actually combine the two things into the players field. I combine its players field plus this string, okay, which is just a slash there, and then I add the max players so that it goes players out of players, right? So it would be like 16/32 if there's 16 players in a 32-man server. Okay, then I write the ping, and then I write the server number field, okay? And that's it. I mean, that's all I do for the whole thing, okay? And again, now let me show you the confirm MC window here, which is right here. Now this has some animation stuff on it, okay? It starts off with just a general movement tween, which is the blue one. So it just, this shape scales up. Then I do a shape tween where I actually moved the points over time, okay? It also changes colors. It goes from gray to that yellow. And then once it's open, it hits this point here, which actually tells the movie clip to stop. So it'll stop here, okay? At the beginning, it exists in the world, but it's told to stop. Now you'll notice here that I've also declared the same variables that I've done in the entry MC, which holds those variables. So when I click that button, these get written, okay? Now I come here, and again, all I do is when I get to this frame, I use this movie clip itself to write the text, okay? So this, what happens is when you put code on a frame, it gets executed when the playhead hits it. Every time the playhead hits it. But the thing is the playhead actually has to enter the frame for that to get fired off. When I hit stop here, which is actually here, when I hit stop, the playhead on this particular movie clip just sits here. Okay, And it's, while in essence it's actually looping over and over and over again on this frame, it's not leaving it and coming back in. And that's the only way that this code will get fired. Okay, so it only gets written the one time. And it's the same exact thing. Okay, I just set the text to be this.ip. Now the reason that I'm saying this.ip, and the reason that I want to make sure that I declare the variables inside of here, because it's much easier for me to read my own variables. I'm the movie clip, and it's going to be way easier for me to read my own variables than try to figure out which one of those entry MCs was the last one I clicked, you know. So that's why when you hit the button here, entry MC, you hit this button, it tells that movie, remember that's confirm MC, that's the address to confirm MC. Because I'm deep inside of another movie clip, okay, I'm way inside, I'm in entry window MC dot entry container dot MC, and now I'm inside of entry MC itself. I need to go all the way back to the root to find this. Okay, so it's always safest to just slap root on everything. Okay, and then I tell it to say, okay, well, now that containers variables are going to match my variables. I'm the particular movie clip. You can see it here. Okay, so the container variables get written. Hopefully I'm explaining this like properly. It's hard for me to explain code so well. So then this, once it gets here, it gets written. Now you can see that these are just a bunch of default fields. Okay, and you can see that I just did a test for how long each individual one was going to be. And then, so it tells it to play, and boom, it gets here and it writes. Okay, it also stops. Okay, and it just sits there. Now when I hit this button here, all I do is say to play, this.play. So this movie clip, which is, when it says this, it's where this object is. This button is in this movie, is in confirm MC. This doesn't mean this button here. Okay, it means this here. When you say this, it's wherever you see showing up right here. And this can be a long string if something's embedded a bunch deep. Okay, so it tells this to play. So it just says, okay, it plays. Over here, I don't have any code, so it's just going to loop. Okay, so if you don't ever put any code on anything, a movie clip will just loop automatically. The only way to get it to not loop is to actually throw like a stop right here on the action on the movie clip frame. But in this case, I want it to loop back to here. You'll notice that there's no graphic there. Okay, it's empty, completely blank. The first keyframe with actual an item on it is here, and when it gets back to the start, it's just going to stop. Okay, it will actually it won't redeclare the variables. The variables are declared, but it doesn't actually tell it to do anything with the variables. It doesn't give them a new value, so they're basically okay. But in essence, it will kind of redeclare them. Okay, just to keep that in mind. So that's it for how the variables get passed from the entry to the confirm window. Okay, and when I click, if I go back to the confirm window here, when I click join server, this is basically where the whole thing comes to a finale. This is the final countdown right here. This is the last thing that happens. After this whole movie clip's going to close. Now I use the external interface.call join server. Now that's going to tell the Unreal script to fire that function join server. My Unreal coder needs that function, and it should match identically. Okay, Flash is case sensitive in every single regard. Join server is not the same as join server with a lowercase s. It's a completely different function. Okay, just keep that in mind. You got to be very careful with your caps. Again, fluff here. On non-consequential stuff, this is just going to pop up. This is just going to tell the cursor to play. So this is the meat of it. And this is, like I said, this is my finale here. So when I click this, it's going to automatically go to join. Now I could say yes or no. I could pop up a yes or no. But that's kind of what this window itself is. Yes, no. Do you really need to, I mean, you could always say, are you sure you want to do this? And then they hit yes, and then they go, are you really sure? And then they hit yes, and you go, are you totally positive? And then they go, yes. And then you go, well, I've asked you 3 times now. Do you agree? And then they go, yes. And then they can come up and say, well, so just so we're clear, I asked you 3 times and you said yes. And now you just said yes again. So it seems pretty clear to me that you want to go forward. Do you agree? I mean, you could keep that chain going for an eternity. In this case, for most of the times, you just want a yes or no one time. Even though this doesn't say yes and no, in essence it does. Green and red. Green being go, red meaning stop. Okay, we use simple traffic laws. Okay, so that's the confirm MC. Now, I've got other stuff that happens beforehand. And what I do is I reset some positions. Okay, that's it. So the drag button MC, whenever I add this, gets reset back to 0. And so does the container MC. Let me show you that real quick, and I'll just pull everything into view on this one. Okay, so I add a bunch, and then I come down and I drag. Oh, I broke that, remember? I broke that here. So let me fix that. That's what broke it. That's it. That's all it was. Okay, so we come back here, and then I add them, and now I drag this down. When I add again, you'll notice that this whole thing gets moved back up, and so does this get moved back up. Boom, like that. That's right here. Right here. Okay, it's these two right here. Entry window mc.entry container.mc.y gets put back to 0, reset the list's position, and the scroll bar mc's drag button .y gets reset to 0. Okay, I also reset my new position variable back to 0 in the very beginning. Okay, the reason I'm doing this is because I'm clearing every time I hit that add button. I'm increasing the size of my my array, and then I'm writing that entire array. In order for me to write that entire array, let me show you what happens if I don't do this. If I don't clear this, add, next time I add, I should end up with 16, right? Actually, it works okay. I'm an idiot, but I do. This is like a sanity check, to make sure that everything. Now, also a part of the other reason is that I got to make sure that. Kind of lost what I did, but yeah, no, it's okay. I dump the array, but the thing is if I don't do the dump array, when I hit clear, it's actually going to, which is actually here, it's going to dump everything in the movie list. But the thing is the reason that it's still working is because I have a list of 16. I have a dump array of 16 movie clips, right? And then when I hit the button, I added 16 to the 16 that was there instead. So I add 8, and then I add 8 plus 8 because I don't clear my server array on this function anywhere. Okay, I don't reset that server array. So the dump array, even though it wasn't showing on screen, was actually 8. Instead of 8 plus 8, it was 8 plus 8 plus 8. It was 8 plus 16 because the server, you know what I'm saying? The server array gets added 8 new entries. They got pushed into the server array. Those get added to the dump array every time one of these is added. Okay, so those got pushed into the dump array. So the dump array is now actually sitting at 24 instead of 16. The reason that it still works is because it's still going to go through and dump each movie clip by its instance. It'll just try to dump 8 more. And if I hit add 500 times, so I have 500 servers, that's when this is a problem. Because instead of dumping 500, I'm now dumping whatever the math is there. Like 3,000-4,000 are going to be inside that dump array because I'm doubling down the line. So that's why we run this. Okay, so I reset my variables. Okay, because remember I want to clear everything. Well, that's on clear list. Okay, I still reset the variables here. All right, I move everything up, and I reset my Y position. I reset my entry num, and I go through and I dump the dump array. Okay, now I say, do this again. I don't need that. For some reason I was doing that again, which I didn't need to do. Okay, now the very first thing I do is I set a bunch of visibility buttons here. Name on MC. Let me show you which that is. That's actually this guy here. Well, this would be players on MC. Players on MC. Okay. This is just to say that this is on. Map on. This is whether or not I'm sorting by this field. Game mode on MC. Okay. IP on MC. And this would be name on MC. So each one of those, every time I do this, gets reset back to false. All 6 of them. Okay, automatically. Set all the buttons to off. Now I check my sorting options. Now sort by here is a variable that I declared in the very beginning. And it's none. Okay, it's just empty. Completely none. Okay. If it equals name, then I'm going to say name on visible equals true, which I've set everything to false, but it's going to get set to true now because name would be on. Now, where do I set name to be on? It's when I hit this button here, which is this black button behind it. Okay, so you can see that I'm in the sort button here. And when I click that, all I do is this here. I check that variable, root sort by. Is it already equal to name? If yes, then I set it to off. Now the reason for that is so that I can do this. On, off, on, off. That's all, okay? So if it's already equal to name, then we set it to none, which is going to be, just set it to none. Then I'm going to say, if not, if it's something else, then set the root sort by to equal to name. And then each time I click one of these things, I do the entire add server function again, which is going to clear the whole list and going to rewrite the whole list. Okay, it's going to rewrite the whole list with server array. Okay, as remember, that's my total tracker here. Okay, that keeps my list of servers. All right, so that's why each one of these and every single one of them does the exact same thing, except this is IP if it's IP. Okay, that's the only difference. Everything else is exactly the same. This string and this string is the only difference between all of these black buttons. Okay, and this again actually has just text to say that it's off in the beginning. Okay, this dot visible equals false. Every single one of these yellow buttons has the same thing. Okay, you can notice that they even have the same copied over trace because I literally just duped the button after I did my initial check. Okay, so every time I click one of those black buttons, it's going to set the name of IP, of sort by, and then I just go through this list. First, I change all the yellow buttons to off, and then I check, okay, well, what is sort by equal? Okay, well, if sort by equals players, then turn that one back on. So in essence, it turns off and then turns back on. Okay, now what I do is I use this function here, serverlist.sortOn. You can look that up. Basically, what it allows you to do is sort an array, which basically is alphabetical and or numeric, but you can force them. And it's going to order that array. Now, if I'm going to sort by map, it's just going to be alphabetical, okay? Which is here, map. Now, sort on you'll notice that I've got parentheses, then brackets, and then a string inside of that. Okay, every single one of these, parentheses, bracket, string inside. Okay, in this case here is how I can tell it to do what kind of sort. Okay, numeric is going to say, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If I make an array of 10, 8, 5, 1, 6, you know, and I say sort, it's now going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 if the array is out of order. So this is how I can do the sorting. Now, the reason that I do players descending is because I want players to be from the highest to the lowest, not from the lowest to the highest. I don't want the top of my list to show all the servers that only have one player in it. I want the top of the list to show all the servers that have, 30 players, 29, 28. I want to do it in that order. That's, for the most part, how people like to do it. Ping, same thing. Numeric is just going to count up. So the lowest ping is going to be first. So I'm sorting the list, okay? Then I add each movie clip in sequence using server list, okay? So that's why the sort works, because first I sort the array, okay? Here, this here is not part of it. Again, this is the fluff. This is just turning those yellow buttons on and off. And same with each one of these. Just turns the yellow buttons off and on. Okay, this is the meat of it right here. Meat of it right here. Meat of it right here. And the meat of it is right here. Okay, each one of these has the same thing. Okay, so I sort the array if my sort by is equal to this. Okay, because if it's equal to ping, sort by name is going to be false. So okay, well I'm going to check here. Else if it's no, false. Okay, else if no, false. Else if no, false. Else if no, false. Else if yes, it is. And boom. Okay. Then I do my magic. And that's it. That's everything. Now the clear list is basically the same thing. This never got used because I found this. This was basically a gift to me from the ActionScript gods. They said, I shall bestow upon you an easy way to sort your arrays. And because I was going to be writing a bunch of name arrays, I was going to try to sort the arrays, and I was going to have to do all this cross-referencing and checking and all this crap, and I was like, oh my god, this is going to be so hard to get these, to sort the fields, but it turned out to be quite easy using this here. So it's very good. And again, this only works on the array types that have fields. Okay, and again, a field type array, I don't know what they're called, is this kind where you use a name. Okay, and again, so the difference would be, okay, array 1 equals 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's a normal array. Array 2 equals basically like this. Where is it? And then it's like that, and then it would be name 1, okay, age 2, actually like that, age 2, race human, because we're all human. And that's the other type of array. Now this has a field, so index 0 of this array is 1. Index 0 of this array is name equals 1, if that makes any sense. Actually no, index 0 of this is 1. Index 0 of this is object, object, object. Okay, this is actually an object. Okay, because the object is a field name and a value. Okay, which is classified as an object. It's not classified as an individual variable. But this is the entire entry. So this is 1. So that's why every time I push, this first one, let's just assume this is the array, gets all of this. The whole thing is here in 1, okay, which is actually index 0. So if I wanted to show this a little bit more clearly, it's actually 0, 1, 2. Okay, so all of this gets copied where 0 is, and then the next time I do it, that's here, then the next time here, and the next time here. So in essence, array 2, which is, you know, this actually server array, is all this crap, comma, all this crap, comma, all this crap, comma, all this crap. Okay, so index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, going down the line. So that's the meat of how this kind of thing can be done easiest. I think this kind of array, and again, it could be any names, any values, any number of values. This could be like a, you know, just 1,000 different fields, you know. And if I wanted to add a new field, I can say, you know, happy, yes, you know, and then I wouldn't be able to sort by this list unless they all had happy yes on there. Okay. So that is how I did my server browser. And I'll show you guys how it works again one last time. So I can add. Do I have a... I did it again, didn't I? I keep forgetting to delete all of this stuff that I do to show how any of this works. Line 36. Is that here? No, is that on this guy? Sometimes the compile errors can be kind of hard to find because it's scene 1, actions, frame 1, line 36, and 154. It doesn't actually tell you where. So if I look at frame 154, I broke something while I was showing you guys, so I can just you know, close, no, and then open it again. I didn't do anything spectacular. The only thing that I did do that I want to save is that, for the most part. And I don't really think I need that. Okay, and now I should have no errors. So, see my mouse spins on every single button. Okay, I do have the ability to drag this, which sucks, but I don't think it's going to be a big problem. So I can click add, and I can click any one of them, and it will come up with all of the correct values. Bends this pink curly-tailed bridge. Okay, and I should probably make it so you can drag this around, which would be quite easy. I can just say start drag. I can't click anything else here. And then I can close it. Again, any of them will show the right values. That all gets passed. Okay, this isn't going to do anything because I'm not off the screen. Again, it's not still, but if once I add one more set of 8, again, it's going to come in like that. I can sort by server name, IP, which is probably unnecessary, game mode, okay, map, players, and by ping. And I have the ability to add as many as I want. Okay, I can still sort by map. Again, I'm just using a mock list right now. Okay. Now if I wanted to add a host server thing, I could probably do it down here, like as a new bar, like host, and where you can enter the name, and it should dynamically fill in the field here. And then I'd have to bring open a new window, like a completely new window that shows where you pick your game mode and your map and set the max number of players. But IP and ping would have to be dynamically generated. So on my end, I'm not ready for that yet because we need to get this stuff working first. I need to make sure that the ping and the IP address are going to work because Whoever hosts a server, either it being locally or say like a server box, would need to basically configure an ini file beforehand, like with their server settings, and then what our system will do is go and check all of the registered servers. So when a person local hosts, they'll have to, and we had that working in the past where we could check how many servers were registered. But when somebody local hosts, we're going to have to make sure that we write to our thing to register the server with a master list of servers. So that's the thing. It's up to us and you as the game designer to make sure that you are the ones that are registering all the servers. So anytime somebody launches a server, they should be launching the server through your game, right? So once that server goes up, it should fire some code from your game. So just make sure that in there it says, okay, well, just go to my personal address and register this with a master server list, so that all of this stuff can get populated. Now, in the end, again, I can clear, add them back, refresh is the only button that's going to show up. And the way I do that is simply right here, just turn debug to false, because I check here if debug is true, then the add button and the clear button are visible. If not, then they're false. Their visibility is false. So now all I've got is a refresh button, which in essence, because I'm only here in Flash and I don't have anybody passing me a server list, I'm dead in the water. Like, I can't do anything. I don't have any servers to play with. It's dead. So that's why you keep a debug button. So whenever you're generating your ScaleForm stuff, you want to make sure that you basically you're simulating what's going to happen. And in doing that, you usually use debug buttons, and the debug buttons basically send the command that the Unreal Script guy would send, or you as the Unreal Script person need to send over. Okay, so my Unreal Script guy is going to be responsible for this, and this alone. That's all he needs to do. He needs to populate a server array like that, same way, and send it to me. If not, if he can't do that, if Unreal doesn't have this like identical ability to do an array with fields and stuff like that, what he's going to have to do, and what I'm going to have to do, is he's going to have to pass me each field individually, and then I will populate the server array. So I'll need an interim array. I'll need like a temp array, basically, that'll just be basically like temp array, like array would equal like however. Well, actually, it would be like however it's written. I forget how they're like written in the beginning, but it would be like this, I think, like that. I'm really not really sure. I'll be honest with everybody. I don't know why won't I didn't want to publish it. Yeah, I know. Why isn't shift working? Okay, there it goes. Then it would be like server, and then probably something like this, IP. So I define the fields, and then I would have to set those values each time. So that'll be something that we have to do. If he can't do this, then he can say, okay, well, for each one of the servers, send me the server name, send me the IP, send me the mode, send me the map, send me the players, and I'll populate a temporary server and a temporary array and build an array, and then I'll push that array into my server array, or I'll just say, push with blank here, like so, and then I can say server array index, whatever index I'm on, dot server equals Clammy Sosa's palms, okay, and or Fappy Chan's Flappy Circus, and Captain Taint's sparkling spackle. So gross. So That's it. Yeah, I can't think of anything else I need to show you in order to hopefully help you understand it. But let me just show the code one more time. Okay, here's all my variables. You need this in the beginning to make sure that ScaleForm works. Okay, ScaleForm is GFx. Here's all my variables. I just want to point out that this was pointless, so we don't need that. So those are my variables. Here's my debug, just to hide and unhide my buttons. Here's where I clear my list. Again, this was not needed. So just this stuff here. Okay. Here's the meat of my ad server. Here's my pre-checks, my preliminary stuff that I'm doing to make sure that I'm resetting, okay, positions and variables, and then I'm clearing out my dump array. Here's where I just deal with those yellow buttons. I've just turned them off first. Then I go through and check which sort option I have chosen. Okay, depending on which one is which field I sort by. Okay, and I can set the type here. You can look this up, sort on, just AS2 space sort on. Do that in Google and you'll find all the explanations of that. Then I go through and I add every new movie clip based on how many are in the server list here by using the simple for loop and dot length. Here's where I add the actual movie clip. Now again, this, let me see if I can't fit this in the screen here. I think that's fitting. Yep. So var, this is how it's added. This is the address of where I want to add it, right there. Okay. You do attach movie clip. This is the name of it in the library. This is the unique identifier that I'm going to give it. This is its like tag number ID or something. I don't even know if that's necessary. I never use it. Here's its X and here's its Y. Okay. Then I add it to my dump array to make sure that I can dump it later. And then I reset the position for the next one that's going to get added. I set all my variables. I write all my fields. And I never used this. And that's it for the main timeline. Okay, that's all I did. The button here just basically only sets its drag. That's all it cares about. Okay, it's either dragging or not. This is the field for dragging. Okay, what am I dragging? Do I lock it to the center of the object, left, top, right, and bottom? Okay, this is the bottom here. So the total height of the whole movie clip that this is embedded into minus my own height, so that it makes sure you could just put a hard value in here, and sometimes it's easiest just to say, okay, well let me try 50. Okay, well let me try 100. You know, however you want to do that. So that's all I do for dragging this up and down. I do have a entry window MC that is just a mask. That's all it does. It masks this movie clip entry container MC. Okay, entry container MC has nothing in it. However, entry window MC does have entry container MC in it, and it does have action script on it. Okay, which is here. So I check, am I dragging? Figure out how far the drag bar has gone, and then use that math to set how far this is going to move up, being the -1 tells me to go up. Okay. The height here is just the height of that mask. That's how big the mask is. Okay. Again, because I'm only going to travel this distance. This is my mask. This is the total size of my movie clip. I only want to travel this amount right here, so that's why I use this percent to determine how much percent of this goes up. That's it. Okay, and every time you click one of these guys, they write the values to the confirm window. So the confirm window gets the values, and then I tell the confirm window to play, so it does appear. That's that. The confirm window itself just opens to here and then writes the names to the fields. And that's it. Now I actually need to tell this to, this isn't actually entirely done because I need to tell it what server am I joining. I need to tell Unreal what server am I joining. And I forget the syntax for passing a parameter to Unreal. I have to ask my buddy how that works again, but it's going to be simple. Worst case scenario, I can have a root variable that just says which IP am I going to try to join. So then once he gets this, he can read that variable. It's no big deal. That's it. And that's everything. So hopefully you guys have found this not super confusing and not like annoying. It's very hard to make videos about coding, and I find that it's a lot easier to like make a video after the code is written, just because it takes so long, and dealing with syntax and stuff like that, it does take quite a long time to write it all out, you know, like live. So hopefully this way, if you guys couldn't follow this, or there was a better way for me to show it, just let me know. If you know what would be a better way. Maybe it would be best in a long tutorial with parts where I say, okay, this part I'm gonna figure out how to write all this stuff out and all that stuff. It is tough when I do know that it's tough when you're writing this stuff from scratch, because you know, any misplaced dot, any misplaced parentheses and stuff like that. But it's always a good idea just to keep tracing. Just trace everything whenever you're checking stuff. I delete them after I'm good with them. Always delete my trace lines when I'm done, so that I went in and, I mean, I had tons of them. I was tracing after each one of these things just to make sure that they were getting written, you know. But in this case, I am good. So here's where I just, you know, write the variables and stuff like that. I'm keeping it right here because this is, like I said, this is the main line. This is the meat of the whole thing. This is how they're gonna get added based on that array. And again, let me show you last thing. This is the format for the array. Okay, how you can push an array with fields. And again, like I said, these are just made up values. I just wrote anything. They're not even the right map names, and they're not the right IPs, and they're not the right server names. You know, it's just invented crap that I just typed in here. Okay, I mean, it could be anything. Notice I gave sin survival. Is it like this is the inside joke? All right. So yeah, thank you very much, and hopefully you guys have found this somewhat useful.